Hello audience. Today we are going to talk about potential for developing initiating use of substance use in context of COVID-19 pandemic. And there are special care issues of patients having substance use disorder during lockdown, isolation and quarantine, which are the situations occurring now. In isolation and quarantine, mental hygiene becomes a very important activity for all of us. Because if we don't take care of mental hygiene, we can definitely have some mental health issues. So first of all, continue the usual activities. Whatever you do every day, those things should be done. And in addition, we need to have some fitness activities to remain active. The objective of this session is to acquaint nurses about prevention strategies for initiation of use of substance during lockdown or in isolation and quarantine, to prepare nurses to assist persons having substance use disorders during COVID-19 outbreak. Substances such as psychoactive substances, alcohol, opioid, tobacco, stimulants, etc. To acquaint nurses about best practices for taking care of persons who are using substances during COVID-19 outbreak. Care of persons, potential for initiating use of substance in context of COVID-19 pandemic. That means people who have never used substances. Now because of this situation, they might like to initiate or start. So what are the risk factors for developing substance use disorder in context of COVID-19 outbreak? The females are at high risk of depression and anxiety. Hence, for maladaptive coping mechanisms, they might try to use substances. A bread earner of the family, that means a person who is working, going out for earning money, is now sitting at home because of COVID outbreak. So he or she is undergoing the stress of hopelessness, pressure of basic necessities of family. Then students and adolescents, due to shutdown of schools and colleges across the levels, with definitely not knowing for how long they will be sitting at home. Now people under quarantine or in isolation, they are deprived of social support and risk of uncertainty. Now this is the people who are isolated from each other also, from the family members also, from everybody. So they are definitely having a lot of uncertainty in their mind. Then frontline workers. It can be nurses, doctors, it can be various other people who are army, police, who are directly or indirectly taking care of people during this pandemic. So there can be a lot of anxiety provoking situations in pandemic. Pandemic brings several unwanted psychological issues in the life of a common person. Anxiety, depression, frustration, stress, anger and burnout, and many more reactions. People are forced to work from home, so loneliness, isolation, feeling of being separated from outer world increase the anxiety among people. Others who are essentially service providers and they have to get out of the house and provide service during this COVID outbreak, like health workers, policemen, sanitation workers, army, vegetable, milk vendors, and many more also are in tremendous pressure and have anxiety. Due to increased anxiety levels, the person initiates substance use or abstinent users, or those abstinent can relapse. So the effect of increased anxiety levels, the person may initiate substance use who has never used it. The abstinent users, those who have become sober, they were users in the past, they are very well taken and they were abstinent for a very long time, but suddenly they may relapse. Then those who are users, they may aggravate use of substance. Now COVID-19 outbreak was declared public health emergency of international concern by WHO on 30th January 2020. Now proliferation of fear, non-availability of definitive treatment, unparalleled magnitude of spread of infection proliferates fear, erratic and maladaptive behavior, because nobody knows much about COVID and how to treat and what to do, what not to do. Fear and anxiety related to COVID-19 can precipitate new symptoms in people without mental illness, aggravate pre-existing conditions, and cause distress to caregivers and patients with substance use. Psychological impact of COVID-19 is much deeper. Regardless of exposure, the people may experience falling sick, dying, helplessness, or blame others. Psychiatric morbidities have been found to vary from depression to anxiety to panic attack to PTSD to delirium to psychosis, initiation of self-medications of substance use disorder, and even suicidality. There are strategies to prevent initiation of substance use in the people. The first of all, prepare a timetable for various activities the whole day. It becomes very difficult to engage yourself at home for such a long period and not knowing for how long. So importantly, household chores should be divided among all the people. It should not be only handled by one person. Household chores should be divided among all the people in the family so that everybody remain engaged. Then personal growth activity. There are so many things you have thought you will be doing, you didn't do because your busy schedule. Now you can plan those things because there is enough time for you to do introspection, to do personal growth activities, for self-development, for personality development. You can take some online activities. Then studies can be done for preparation for further exams, for entrance exams. You can prepare for many other kind of different studies. Then office related activities also you need to put a slot. Then exercise. So one day program can be planned that where you have household chores, you have personal growth activity, you have studies, and you have office related activities, and you have exercises. Plus recreation. Then social media. See, social media is used for many things in the past by us, but at present it is being used for knowing what is happening latest, what is happening in Italy, what is happening in USA. So we are constantly wanting to know about COVID. So that is really giving us lot of anxiety. So it is better to stay off media and only look at media for limited time. Now, get involved in pleasurable activities is a very important thing because there are a lot of things we have not done but we thought we will do. So while the threat is real, mental health becomes main priority. The threat of COVID is real. So getting involved in lot of activities such as music, drawing, painting, cooking, eating balanced meal, do yoga, meditation, make restful sleep a priority. Then avoid using self-medication. We must give advice to people not to do self-medication under any cost and not to use alcohol under any cost, and don't mix the two. Connect with loved one. You might not have talked to some of your family members for a very long time. You might have talked to your friends for a very long time. So you can use smartphone, internet, or any other service provided by technology and use this time to talk to friends, to catch up with family members, to catch up with grandparents, and to catch up with people who are staying far away from your home. Then factors aggravating drug taking behavior or substance use disorder. Traumatic or sudden loss of loved one from the outbreak. It can be possible that some of your family member might have developed COVID disease and you might have lost them because of this. So they can be traumatic experience like that. Then quarantine person may experience loneliness, shame, guilt, or stigma. Then financial losses and risk of unemployment intensify the negative emotions. Then lack of social support and communication, maladaptive coping, and lack of awareness and training are further reasons for developing substance use disorder. Now, lockdown, quarantine, and alcohol use factors aggravating alcohol use. With the threat of COVID-19, a person with problematic drinking behavior may face anxiety, loneliness. This can be brought on by need for social distancing and being instructed to remain at home. Alcohol decrease immunity of person's symptoms and increase the susceptibility to certain infections. Drastically restricted access to alcohol lead to symptoms of alcohol withdrawal. There is clear relationship between anxiety and alcohol use disorder. Prolonged drinking and alcohol withdrawal are associated with an increased incidence of anxiety. People with anxiety who self-medicate along with alcohol developed an alcohol use disorder later in life. Social distancing strategies by staying home, keeping 6 feet away from others in public and at home is necessary. Now, challenges of someone is struggling with alcohol use or have an alcohol dependent disorder, he may already be feeling alone. Social withdrawal increases loneliness and depression, which themselves may be factors associated with substance use. Isolation from friends and family due to social distancing may have unintended adverse effect, and it may take away the ability to socialize with support system. For many struggling with alcoholism, creating and maintaining healthy social connections fuel their motivation to either stay sober or continue working towards sobriety. It is no surprise then that in a time like this, they may be feeling even more vulnerable and potentially triggered to pick up alcoholic beverages. Factors that may initiate or aggravate substance use disorder among healthcare providers. The first responders, that means police, army, NCC cadets, paramedics, healthcare workers, doctors, nurses, drivers, and there are so many people providing food, milk vendors, food vendors, vegetable vendors. All of them have fear of transmission of virus to their loved one. When they go back to family after whole day work, they are afraid that their family might get infection from them. So they are literally living in fear. Now the balance between duty, altruism, personal fear of oneself and others can cause lot of conflict and dissonance in the mind of the people who are working outside home during this pandemic. Now here are some reasons for increasing anxiety among essential service providers. Lack of adequate protective gear, not wearing mask, not wearing gloves, not covering, not having sanitizer to wash hands or clean hands repeatedly, being exposed to infection and risk of taking it to family members, lack of easy access to testing if symptoms develop and consequent risk of spreading it to workplace, lack of confidence regarding support from organization in case of illness, adjusting to duty schedules which keep on changing because of lack of staff. The duties may keep on changing. Sometimes double duty has to be done. Anxiety regarding child care due to increase in duty hours and school closure. Lack of support as work demand increase along with problem in food, lodging and transport, because you may not be able to come back home. You might have to stay near the workplace, or you might have to stay work for 4 days and rest for 4 days. Lack of access to up-to-date information and communication regarding COVID and regarding your job and regarding your roster. Now, psychological interventions to reduce anxiety can be used. At present, online psychotherapies are already there. So we can enroll in that through video conferencing. We can do through Zoom meeting, online smartphone-based psychoeducation about virus outbreak, promote mental wellness and initiate psychological interventions. Cognitive behavior therapy and mindfulness-based therapies are already going on through app. There are a lot of free apps and there are a lot of computer-based programs which you can enroll. They are free at the moment. Peer support network for people to share their challenges and resolutions during outbreak. So those people who are working in the similar situation, you can interact with them through WhatsApp and through internet. For self-care and well-being, we need to have little more attention to be given to our basic needs on regular basis. Maintain regular eating, drinking and sleep schedule, adjusting to your duty shifts. Neglecting the basic needs put at higher risk, because if you neglect basic needs, you are at higher risk. It may affect your ability to care for patients. Communication with family and remain connected with family and friends. Keep in touch with the family and close friends whom you support network outside the healthcare system. Sharing your feelings and staying connected with them may help in de-stressing you. Stay updated on latest scientific information. Gather information from credible sources of information and keep yourself updated on daily basis. Then limit media exposure. A continuous stream of news and updates on social media really disturbed all the time. So just take care. Try to monitor unnecessary exposure to media, setting a strict time limit. Gauge your mental and emotional health. Monitor yourself. You should be able to make out you're anxious, you're depressed, you're feeling prolonged stress, you're feeling tired, you're feeling change in mood, you're feeling insomnia or having intrusive memories, hopelessness feelings. So these things can be reduced by talking to a friend, trusted colleague, or seek professional help if required. So seeking professional help, many people don't like to do. But here it will be nice if you identify depression, if you identify you have anxiety, then better to seek professional help from a psychiatric department through an app or through telephonic counseling or some other internet method. Now those who are already using substance, what impact the outbreak will have on them? Because they will be hit very hard. The coronavirus that causes could be can cause special threat to those who smoke marijuana or who vape because it attacks the lungs. People with opioid use disorder and Amphetamine use disorder may also be vulnerable due to those drugs' effect on respiratory and pulmonary health. Additionally, they experience homelessness, incarceration than those in the general population. Vaping, like smoking, may also harm lung health. Exposure to aerosol from e-cigarette harm the cells of the lungs and diminishes the ability to respond to infection. For opioid users, people face separate challenges to their respiratory health. Since opioids act in brainstem to slow breathing, their use not only puts the user at risk of life-threatening or fatal overdose, it may also cause harmful decrease in oxygen in the blood and leading to hypoxemia. Lack of oxygen can be especially damaging to brain. Chronic respiratory disease is already known to increase overdose mortality risk among people taking opioids, and thus diminished lung capacity from COVID-19 could similarly endanger this population. History of amphetamine use may also put people at risk because amphetamine constricts the blood vessels, which is one of the properties that contributes to pulmonary damage and pulmonary hypertension in people who use it. COVID-19 is a new virus whose symptoms may range from mild to severe, with the potential for more serious illness in people over 65 plus, as well as those with pre-existing medical condition, and they have weakened immune system because of prolonged intake of alcohol. Over the years, studies have shown a clear association between excessive alcohol consumption and weak immune system, specifically when it comes to person's susceptibility to pneumonia. Alcohol users may be among particularly vulnerable. Acute binge drinking also compromises the immune system. The alcohol abuse can also lead to various issues with cardiopulmonary system, heart and lung. In times like this, our bodies need to function at their highest level in order to fight off symptoms of this virus and decrease the potential harm of COVID-19. If person has physical dependence on alcohol, the person may face serious or life-threatening symptoms of alcohol withdrawal. Other risks of people with substance use disorder may include decreased access to healthcare, housing insecurity, and greater likelihood for incarceration. Limited access to healthcare places people with addiction at greater risk for many illnesses. Homelessness, incarceration can expose people to environments where they are in close contact with others who might also be at higher risk of infection. The prospect of self-quarantine and other public health measures may also disrupt access to syringe exchange program, medications and other support needed by people with injecting drug users and opioid users. Poor public health among homeless substance users may exacerbate risk of spreading disease. Non-hygienic disposal of bodily waste, which have been shown to harbor virus, discarded syringes, smoking butts, other paraphernalia can also give infection to others. Smokers and vaporers tend to forcefully expel smoke or vapor, which could spread virus more efficiently than normal exhalation. Now, issues of people with substance use disorder. Most importantly, withdrawal symptoms. Nicotine withdrawal symptoms usually peak after 1 to 3 days and then decrease over a period of 3 to 4 weeks. After this time, the body has expelled most of the nicotine and the withdrawal effects are mainly psychological after 4 weeks. When nicotine reaches the brain, it activates areas concerned with feelings of pleasure and reward and boosts levels of chemical called dopamine. When people use nicotine for an extended period, it leads to changes in balance of chemical messengers in their brain. When a person stops using nicotine suddenly, they disrupt this chemical balance and experience physical and psychological side effects such as craving and low mood. Withdrawal symptoms set in between 4 and 24 hours after a person smokes their last cigarette. The symptoms peak around day 3 of quitting and then gradually subside over the following 3 to 4. Symptoms of nicotine withdrawal. Psychological symptoms of nicotine withdrawal include a strong desire or craving for nicotine, irritability or frustration, low mood, difficulty concentrating, anxiety, mood swings. Now, people will also experience physical symptoms after nicotine withdrawal. Those could be headache, sweating, restlessness, tremors, difficulty sleeping, waking at night, increased appetite, abdominal cramps, digestive issues, including constipation, difficulty in concentrating. Now, the tips for coping with nicotine withdrawal. Mentally prepare for reality of withdrawal symptoms, because when we are lockout, there will be less possibility of getting tobacco into your home. So you have to first mentally prepare, because that will help you to make adjustment. Making a list of benefits of quitting will also help, and read them again and again. Why should you quit tobacco? Then exercising more regularly during withdrawal, especially as a distraction from craving, because that will really help you to overcome the withdrawal. Adding social pressure by telling people about their decision to quit. Tell everybody that now, because of this lockdown, I am forced to leave tobacco. In future also I will not take. So those type of things will tell others that you want to leave, and they will also pressurize you, and they will help you to leave tobacco. Avoiding triggers such as drinking alcohol with tobacco or visiting specific areas unnecessarily where you were meeting people. So try to avoid going out to your friends with whom you were drinking or taking smoking together. Being realistic about how long quitting can take, because quitting can take very long time. After this lockdown period also, you will have to go for treatment for quitting forever. Taking up new hobbies and keeping busy is another plan you should make. Spending more time with friends on phone who do not use nicotine will be very good. Withdrawal symptoms varies with half-life of a particular opioid. In case of opioid withdrawal symptoms, it may be different than nicotine. Within 6 to 12 hours after the last dose of morphine, hydromorphine, oxycodone, 72 to 96 hours following methadone. They subside within 2 to 6 weeks. Withdrawals include yawning, sweating, nausea, diarrhea, cramping, abdominal pain, coughing, lacrimation, mydriasis, rhinorrhea, twitching of muscles, piloerection, restlessness, diffuse body pain, insomnia, and mild elevation of body temperature. Cannabis withdrawal symptoms may not be very severe one, but they are very unpleasant. Diminished appetite, mood changes, irritability, sleep difficulties, headache, loss of focus, cold sweat, chills, stomach problems. Sedative withdrawal symptoms are in 3 stages. They are characterized in first stage as anxiety, tremor, agitation, elevated systolic BP, and sleep problems. Second stage, auditory, visual hallucinations, heart palpitations, high systolic BP, and vomiting. Stage 3, delirium tremors, derealization, and inability to recognize familiar persons or objects. Now, alcohol withdrawal symptoms. Mild withdrawal 6 to 12 hours after the last dose. Could be nausea, vomiting, headache, difficulty in concentrating, insomnia, tremors, sweating, palpitation, anxiety, and mild agitation. Alcohol withdrawal syndrome can also give rise to hallucinosis 12 to 24 hours after the last dose. Usually the hallucinations are visual and auditory. Then alcohol withdrawal fits. So seizure, tonic-clonic seizure can take place within 24 to 48 hours after the last dose of alcohol taken. Then delirium tremens is an emergency. It can happen within 48 to 72 hours after the last dose is taken during withdrawal. So hallucination is the main, visual hallucination is the main symptom. Low-grade fever, disorientation and clouding of consciousness, increased respiration, tachycardia, hypertension, severe agitation, and for this a medical help has to be taken. You cannot keep the patient at home with delirium tremens. Now, there is going to be a sudden spurt in the number of cases suffering from alcohol withdrawal syndrome in view of the ongoing coronavirus lockdown, and that has resulted in closure of liquor shops and bars. Due to non-availability of liquor in local markets, in view of ongoing coronavirus lockdown, triplers are experiencing mild, moderate and severe withdrawal symptoms such as sleeplessness and restlessness. Severe withdrawal symptoms include seizure, epileptic type of seizure, behaving in antisocial manner, injuring themselves or harming others also. Now, alcohol use disorder. Upon trying to reduce daily drinking amount or upon stopping drinking completely, a person with dependence is likely to experience mild moderate alcohol withdrawal. The specific treatment for alcohol withdrawal is not available. A significant proportion of patients are at risk of experiencing severe alcohol withdrawal features during COVID, because here the person cannot go to hospital, cannot get alcohol. So these features will be for severe alcohol withdrawal: convulsions, delirium tremens, impaired awareness of surrounding, Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Severe alcohol withdrawal will feature listed above may not be exclusive to each other. They may be life-threatening, carry the risk of mortality 5%. If not treated timely, in some cases there may be long-lasting adverse neurological sequelae as well. So withdrawal symptoms are very distressing. To avoid discomfort, some may resort to purchasing alcohol from the grey market and might end up consuming adulterated liquor. In most cases, these symptoms will resolve within a span of few days to few weeks, depending upon severity, without any lasting consequences. Severe alcohol withdrawal require attention. Severe alcohol withdrawal require public health response to reduce the risk of alcohol withdrawal. So it's very important to spread awareness about symptoms of alcohol withdrawal and need for seeking treatment, ensuring that treatment and care services are available for people suffering from alcohol withdrawal, ensuring the general readiness and preparedness of health facilities to deal with alcohol withdrawal and its sequelae. The withdrawal can be managed on outpatient basis. Majority of patients do not require hospitalization if they are well in time approaching the medical personnel. If they approach the doctor, if they approach their therapist, they will definitely get very good advice and they will not go in severe withdrawal. The treatment involves quiet and comfortable environment, adequate fluid and nutritional supplement, prescription of medicines of benzodiazepine group such as diazepam and lorazepam, which can be taken orally, high doses of vitamin B, particularly thiamine, vitamin B1, and are essential part of treatment. They can be easily taken orally. Important to keep a check on symptoms suggesting severe alcohol withdrawal, which might require urgent medical attention. The treatment lasts for 1 to 2 weeks with benzodiazepines and gradually tapered off. In emergency care for alcohol withdrawal, the pharmacological treatment may have to be done by injection. So vitamin B1 and benzodiazepine may be given by injection, and closely monitor vital signs, oxygen saturation, fluid, electrolyte status, neurological impairment. Important aspect here is that if the patient is at home, if you prescribe benzodiazepine medication, because this is a controlled psychotropic medication, a prescription is required, but medical practitioner may or the chemist may or may not give this medicine to anybody. So maybe the help is required from the doctor and from medical facility to facilitate purchase of benzodiazepine. Seizures is a very important aspect of alcohol withdrawal. Again, benzodiazepine will be required to be taken in large quantity for that also. So here the patient should not expect that now I have completed my withdrawal, I will not start alcohol again, which is not the case. The relapse can take place if there is no long-term management taken. So patient should be advised to go for long-term treatment. After this lockdown is over, the patient should enroll himself or herself to a treatment facility and take long-term treatment for maintaining abstinence status from substance. Now, role of nurse in SUD withdrawals. Education of the patient is very important. People who are using substances, for them the education is very important because the lockdown is there. Hospitals are out of reach. The regular dosage of medications also are not available. So better to make use of whatever is available intelligently. That means first you take out your stock, what medications you have, what alcohol you have at home, and distribute it in smaller quantities, and take smaller quantities on daily basis, so that you can definitely taper down it to smallest level and you will not suffer from severe withdrawal. Then comes nutrition. Take very good nutrition. Mostly when you are doing substance use, you may not be eating in your proper time. So electrolyte balance, vitamin supplements, especially vitamin B1, then medication arrangement of the dose. If you are already on antagonist, agonist, anti-craving drug, then see how many drugs you have on hand, whether you can get the prescription, whether you can go to the facility and get more drugs, or you'd have to manage with whatever you have. Then sedatives like benzodiazepine and barbiturate, very easily they can be dealt with. That if the person is dependent on benzodiazepine and barbiturate, we mostly advise slow tapering of dose. Suddenly if you stop benzodiazepine and barbiturates, then you may require hospitalization. That is why we advise people who are using benzodiazepine and barbiturate to look at the dose they have at home and slowly taper it down to small doses. Don't stop suddenly, otherwise you will have very severe reaction, withdrawal. The seizure has to be prevented for any cost, because third stage of withdrawal symptom is seizure, and that should be prevented, and that can be easily prevented by taking smaller doses and not to stop suddenly barbiturates and benzodiazepine. Then mobile apps are available to get medication. Get in touch with the doctor with whom you are already in contact, and you will get instruction what to do with your medication. You can give photocopy, you can click the picture of your OPD card and send it to your doctor, and you can send your family member to get the medications by getting answer from the doctor. Now, educating family members is important aspect of role of the nurse, that family members can get in touch with the doctor and get medication on behalf of the patient. So families having people with alcohol withdrawal symptoms need to also help this person to divert their attention, like doing yoga and meditation, and not to leave them alone, or doing some indoor games and spend more time with them, so that they will not go in craving state. Then advice, identification card is required. If they are coming out of the home, they are going to the hospital, they need to have identity card with them, so that they will not be stopped by anybody to reach the hospital. Then provide helpline numbers to patients and the family members for emergency call and for any other advice. Then telehealth implementation is also done by many hospitals. So if the telehealth implementation is going on, this technology also can be used for getting symptomatic treatments for all kinds of problems. And the relationship can be maintained between patient and the doctor and the treating team and the social worker, medical service providers, nurses. Everybody is there to provide reassurance that people are there in case of emergency. You can call this number and you can do video calling or you can do WhatsApp calling. So these type of reassurances are required. If such type of technology is in use by hospital, then vulnerability can be decreased. Psychosocial care is again a very important aspect. Develop rapport and trustful relationship, reassure patient and relatives, help the patient to calm down and use positive coping skills, give needed information and adjust the doses to minimize the withdrawal, do motivational counseling and provide feedback regularly. So provide information, how could they reach the helpline, mental health helpline, substance use helpline, how they can reach the helpline, that information also should be given. Now mind-body interventions are also very good at this point, that if you get into habit of using some yoga, meditation, focused breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, then guide imagery and creative visualization, and these are some of the methods which can be used for improving your mental strength. Lifestyle modification also can be initiated at this point, such as diets and different types of exercise. Now healthy diet again takes care of lot of thought processes. Our behavior gets changed by taking nutritious diet covering all kinds of food. Then stress management techniques can be practiced, and muscle relaxation activities can be practiced. Busy schedule can be there. In isolation, you can start reading books and do some other activities for relaxation. Some relaxation therapies are also there. You can go online and you can download the progressive relaxation video, and also passive relaxation exercises are also there online. Then music therapy is very good. You can also join the bands online. Different people are now having online music companies are there. You can listen to their music, or you can join the music with them. And you can also have laughter therapy, and it really helps in relaxing and de-stressing. Then music therapy, because music therapy promotes wellness and it's very soothing for your mind. Art therapy, you can also do some painting. Even if you have not done painting before, you can use paints, chalks, pen, different types of paintings can be tried. Meditation, if you are keen for meditation apps are there. You can learn from that. Then yoga you can plan. Imagery, also self-directed or guided imageries are there. Biofeedback, also there are some apps now in the phone and in some watches. Some apps are there, biofeedback apps. Then telephone counseling can be sought. Video calling or WhatsApp calling or normal telephone calling can be sought to provide hope, safety, becoming socially connected. Technology can be used. Then to improve the sleep, also teleconsultations can be taken by people who are using substances, and keep the counseling number ready. And from your nearest hospital, your telephone counseling can be done. You may not be able to go to your original hospital. Then opportunity to quit drinking. This is the right time to think of leaving alcohol permanently, and you can start reading about it. You can do teleconsultation for it, and this is the very good opportunity for nurses to do brief intervention of people who are using substances, that they, after this lockdown is over, they can go for enrollment in de-addiction program on long-term basis so that they remain abstinent. So my take-home message here is, mild altering chemicals or alcohol weaken the body immune system. Sharing of any drug-related equipment along with suppressed immune system could spread infection quite quickly. Not to mention that it will be hard for any emergency department to determine symptoms due to withdrawal of any kind of mind-altering chemical or while under the influence, as addicts do not know their bodies like a sober person would. It will take detox facilities and treatment centers by storm if not taken seriously enough. Hopefully, screening will be utilized, and hopefully these facilities will help them more. Not to mention the importance of hygiene and lack of hygiene by those who may be using or abusing their bodies. So these are my references. Please help us to help people in stopping to smoke, and thank you very much and have a good day.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the webinar. And the topic that we are going to discuss today is regarding the communicating very effectively during the COVID-19 outbreak to any patient that whomever you have to come across. So the overview or presentation of today's webinar is effective communication. What is that? What are the tips to communicate effectively with the patients? And WHO guideline to talk with the patient, either it may be suspected or confirmed cases. Do's and don'ts in the effective communication during the COVID-19 outbreak, and the communicating effectively with the suspected patients of the COVID-19, patient in the isolation ward, screening areas, before discharging, COVID-19 positive children. These all scenarios will be shown in a conversation method. So now to begin with, we all know that COVID-19 pandemic has created a sense of panic and chaos that many people might have never experienced before. So during this pandemic, healthcare workers, our main job is to help the people to manage their emotions so that they can still function, and they are not supposed to, or they should not feel that they are hopeless or helpless. So the communication skill will enable a person to communicate very properly during this pandemic time. So while communicating, we have to deliver the more positive ways than the negative way. Means that what are the positive things that is happening around us, and what are the positive things that is been done to curtain about this COVID-19 or the corona, it has to be talked to the people. And when we are talking with the patient, we all know that being a nurse, we all are exhausted to taking care of the patient in a different setting. But still, when we are talking with our patient, we have to keep our facial expression in a very smiling face and a pleasant. And the stress the importance of working together to solve the difficulties. We all know that this is a very difficult time that we all have to come across. So here, even though we are following a very good guideline, WHO guideline, CDC guideline, and Ministry of Health and Family Welfare guideline, if the patients are not cooperative with us, then if they are not taking this infectious disease seriously, then we will not be able to prevent the spread of this infectious disease. So during this outbreak, we should make them understand we all need to work together to solve the difficulty during this pandemic time. So there are some best practices while communicating during the pandemic. Like we need to ensure that information is up to date and available. Whatever the information that we are going to give to the patients and we are going to talk with the patient, it should be available with you, and it should be very new and up to date information has to be given to them. And there are some facts to be given, and the information should be based on only the facts, not on the fiction. So the sources or the information should be from, either it can be from the WHO website or the CDC website or Ministry of Health and Government of India. That information should be only given to this patients, because during this time patients are relying on us to get the correct information from us. Then we have to use a different channel of communication or the messages to be sent to the people or the patient. Why? Because all the patient, we cannot assume that they all have the mobile phones, Android phones. Some of the patient may not be having that. So while making the information for giving the messages to the people or the patient, different channel and a multiple channel of communication should be prepared. And we need to help the people to get through this pandemic by educating them and keeping them informed about that, what has been done, what is going to happen, and what is the present status. And we need to make them feel that we are care for you in this time of this distress, and we are there for you to listen to you and to help you out. And there are some tips that for the effective communication, like it has to be very concise. When we talk with the patient, we are supposed to talk only the concerns and the problem that the patient is sharing with you. We are not going to talk the unnecessary and unrelevant things to the patient. And second thing, we need to listen very carefully to the problems and the concern of the patient. Already the patients are very anxious and they are in a stressful situation and they are already anxiety. So instead of listening, if we are just hearing their problem, it will not going to sort it out their problem. So we need to listen to them to understand that what is their condition. And we need to remember the power of the images. Means, for example, if we are giving only the talk and educating them or giving the health education regarding the COVID-19 only with this teaching part, better to use some images which has been developed by WHO or CDC or the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. Many images have been developed, and these images can be used while we are educating to this patient so that they can understand the situation in the better way. We have to be very nice when we are talking to them. We have to be very natural. It's not like you need to overact that you are the health workers or you know everything. And we have to be very simple. Finally, we are going to ask the feedback from the patient that whatever the information I wanted to give it to them, whether they have received in that manner or not, what they have understood it. So what is the feedback from them? We need to ask them. So there are some key concepts of the risk communication during the pandemic. First thing is trust. How do we maintain the trust from our patient and the public? If you share the information, the valid information and the facts in a very honestly and open-mindedly and very openness, then only this is the only two way that can develop the trust from the patient or the family members and the public. We are not supposed to over reassure the people or the patient, like which we cannot do. Or simple, we can say to the public that what they can do, like simple method of hand washing, covering the mouth and the nose while sneezing or the coughing, maintaining the social isolation, self-quarantine and distancing. This thing we can ask them to do it. And we are not supposed to minimize the people concerned. People are very fearful now. This is a healthy reaction that has been shown from their side. So we are not supposed to minimize, or we are not supposed to just feel neglected about their concern. We need to attend their concern. And we are not going to suggest that people should not be worried. Of course, they are supposed to worry, because this is a time that every one of us should be worried about this. So we are supposed to acknowledge the uncertainty. Here the uncertainty means we don't know anything, and anything we don't know about the COVID-19. So what will happen tomorrow? How many new cases will be coming up tomorrow? How many mortality rate will be increased by tomorrow? So that we cannot say anything. So the uncertainty things which the patient is expressing and understanding, it should be acknowledged. So we need to concern, and we need to tell them, okay, I understand what is your concern right now. We are supposed to express the empathy. It is not we are supposed to empathizing them. We have to put ourselves to their place, and we need to understand the situation. Sometimes while giving the health education or giving the information, sometimes we made the mistake. Better to correct it instead of hiding and keep on going on. And announcing the early, during the pandemic time, when you're giving that communication to the people, announcing whatever the information and whatever the guidelines to the public, it should be in the very early stage. You are not going to delay the announcement, because delaying the announcement or the information may create lots of speculation in the future. So here are some of the WHO guidelines that how we are going to talk with the COVID-19 patient. Either they can be the suspected or the positive cases. So first, when you talk with the patient, you have to be very respectful. So call by name and give your time to them. You should be very polite about the collecting the history and talking, and you should be very empathetic. Try to understand, put yourself in that patient's place and see how the person can feel. We have to be aware that suspected and confirmed cases, who all are the suspected cases, who all are the confirmed cases, what precaution we are supposed to take. And any visitor who are accompanying along with the patient, they also may be stressful, or they also may be afraid. So we have to console them. We need to make them understand also. And the most important thing we can do is we need to listen very carefully to the questions and the concerns that the patients and the family member arises. And we have to use the local language and speak very slowly, so that the person can understand what is the severity and the situation of this pandemic in a better way. Even though we are from the different part of the country, if you're working in that area, you need to understand the local language, so that you have to speak very slowly in the pace, so that they can get what you are going to tell them. And we have to answer the questions, and we need to provide the correct information about the COVID-19. And sometimes we may not have all the answers for every question, because a lot is still unknown about the COVID-19, and it is okay to admit it. We can say, okay, even we don't have the answer for this question, because there is no scientific evidence out of this. So we still cannot answer your question. We can admit it. There is nothing wrong in that. So if available, we need to share the information pamphlet or the handouts with the patient when they are staying in either it may be in the self-quarantine or admitted in the hospital. So they also can get the better information. It is okay to touch or to comfort the suspected and the confirmed patient. Suddenly when the person has been diagnosed, or if you have been told that your COVID test is positive, everyone will be in the shock and they are very fearful. So it is okay to use a touch as a emotional or therapeutic way. So we need to gather the accurate information from the patient, like what is their name, what is the address, what is the date of birth, whether patient had any travel history, what are the symptoms that patient is developing, and how many people so far the person has contacted. That everything we need to get the information very correctly. Explain the healthcare facilities procedure for the COVID-19. For example, if the patient is going to be kept in the isolation, and what they are supposed to do, and what are the rules and regulations that they are supposed to follow, and limited visitors, and what is the next step that they can do it. If the patient is a child, then we have to admit either a family member or a guardian. So for them also we are supposed to provide, and we have to teach them how to use the proper and appropriate PPE. And we need to provide the update to the visitors and the family when it is possible. So there are some do's and don'ts. In the do's, we have to talk about that we need to guide and we need to help the set realistic expectation about what is known, what is being done, and the effectiveness of effort. Means we need to only talk about that realistic expectation, what can be happen in the realistically. It is not like we can do all this, like we can do this, we can do that, which is not going to happen. So what is known about that, like for example, we know how it is spread, how to take care of them, how to prevent this we'll know. And for that, social isolation, lockdown, home quarantine, so many measures have been taken out. So whether these measures are effective to curtail this or to contain this COVID-19, that we need to tell them. And we have to use a clear communication. We are not supposed to use a technical term. If it is using, then we have to convert them in the plain language. So we need to explain what you are going to do to improve, especially if the numbers are frightening. Suddenly, when the number of the morbidity and mortality due to the COVID is increasing, we are supposed to tell them that to improve the situation, how we are going to do that. We have to ask whether we have made the information very clear, like if we wanted to give the information to the patient, whether the patient has got the information very clearly as what I wanted to give it to them. We have to use some examples to set a very common understanding. We need to focus on the fact that you have the information. It is not like somebody has told you some information and you are trying to give it to the information to the patient. No, whatever the fact and information that you have, please focus on that. We need to promise only what we can deliver, set, and we need to follow the strict deadlines. We have to give the best estimation on the basis of the evidence from the science. So we are not supposed to over-promise or foster the unrealistic expectation, particularly about certainty of the situation or a resolution. For example, if we say that COVID, okay, it will be all right after the 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that we don't know exactly. So we are not going to talk about that, and we are not going to give the promises that this will be happening. And we are not supposed to repeat or refer if somebody has given you the negative allegation. We are not going to supposed to assume that we, being a health professional, know everything and understood everything about the patient. And we are not supposed to assume the audience or the patient also understand the complexity of the situation. Some of our patients are wandering around. They are not coming. They are not maintaining the distance. Why? They may not be able to understand what is the complexity of the situation. So we cannot assume that all the public and all the patient have understand about the complexity of the situation and speculate on a hypothetical situation. So during the outbreak responses, how we can give the effective message to that? First, we are going to start with the empathy. Then we have to acknowledge the concern and how we have to express the understand that we at least we can understand what is your situation right now and how you are going through this. We need to explain what is currently known and unknown. And we have to explain about the public health actions are being taken and why these measures have been taken and what was the effectiveness of these measures and why it had been taken it off. That we can explain to the people. So here we are coming up with some of the scenario that how a nurse can talk with a patient who are in the different scenario. In the first one that we'll be showing in this audio, conversation between a patient and a nurse. So the first scenario is रजनी को खांसी है, बुखार है, गले में दर्द है और सांस लेने में कोई भी परेशानी नहीं है. उसने ना ही कोई विदेश यात्रा की है, ना ही किसी विदेश से आए व्यक्ति से संपर्क में आई है. But Rajni wants to take the test of this COVID-19. Now let's see from this audio how a nurse can talk to her and communicate and give the health education about this.
हेलो. हाँ जी, मेरा नाम रजनी है.
ओके.
मैं अपने कोरोना की जांच कराने आई हूँ.
अच्छा रजनी जी, आप सही जगह पे आई है. टेस्ट करने से पहले आपको एक छोटा सा स्क्रीनिंग फॉर्म भरना होगा.
अच्छा.
उसके बाद हम देखेंगे आपको टेस्ट की आवश्यकता है या नहीं है.
अच्छा जी, लेकिन मुझे तो टेस्ट कराना है. मुझे तो बस आप जल्दी से मेरा टेस्ट कर दीजिए.
अच्छा, आप पहले ये फॉर्म तो भरिए, उसके बाद हम देखते हैं.
अच्छा ठीक है, लाइए फॉर्म.
हाँ, ये लीजिए.
ठीक है. ठीक है, मैं भरती हूँ इस फॉर्म को. खांसी तो है मुझे. हाँ, बुखार तो नहीं है, गले में दर्द भी नहीं है. विदेश यात्रा, हाँ ये भी तो होगा. नहीं, ये भी नहीं. किसी बाहर से आए व्यक्ति से नजदीकी मुलाकात नहीं, नहीं ऐसा भी किसी से नहीं मिली मैं। ये लीजिए मैडम, मैंने भर दिया, अब मेरा टेस्ट कर दीजिए। मुझे बहुत डर लग रहा है, हर जगह कोरोना ही कोरोना होता जा रहा है, मुझे तो लग रहा है कहीं मुझे ना हो जाए।
अच्छा रजनी जी, आप यहाँ बैठ जाइए, मैं आपको समझाती हूँ आपको आगे क्या करना है।
अच्छा जी,
आप इधर बैठ जाइए।
जी जी।
देखिए रजनी जी, जैसे कि आपने फॉर्म में लिखा है कि आपको खांसी है पिछले 3-4 दिनों से, और आपको इसके अलावा और कोई भी लक्षण नहीं है, ना ही आप विदेश यात्रा से आई है या है कि किसी से संपर्क में आई है।
नहीं, हाँ नहीं आई।
ऐसे में मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगी कि आपको अभी घबराने का कोई जरूरत नहीं है। आपको मामूली खांसी है, आप सुबह शाम गुनगुनाए पानी से गरारे करें और भाप लें। अभी इस समय आपको टेस्ट की जरूरत नहीं है।
अच्छा जी, तो फिर मैं कब आऊँ कराने, टेस्ट कराने के लिए? देख लीजिए, अगर हो सकता है तो कर दीजिए ना, रिस्क क्यों लेना है?
हाँ जी रजनी जी, मैं आपकी चिंता समझ सकती हूँ, लेकिन जैसे कि मैंने आपको बताया कि आपको कोरोना के प्रमुख लक्षण नहीं दिख रहा है अभी, ना है आपको किसी तरीके का कोई लक्षण हुआ है, तो आपको अभी घबराने की आवश्यकता नहीं है। हाँ, अगर लेकिन आप अपना ख्याल जरूर रखें और जैसे मैंने समझाया है वैसे जरूर गरारे और भाप लें। आपको जब तक बहुत जरूरी ना लगे तब तक अस्पताल ना आइएगा।
अच्छा जी, ठीक है मैडम, तो फिर मैं घर चली जाती हूँ।
हाँ जी रजनी जी, आप अपना और आपके परिवार का ख्याल रखिएगा।
जी मैडम जी, धन्यवाद मैडम, थैंक यू।
धन्यवाद।
Okay. From this conversation, we come to know that how a nurse can talk very effectively regarding that screening of a patient. Even though the patient wants to do the screening test, if it is not required, the nurse may have to understand the patient that it is not required. If it is not necessary, don't come to the hospital. So this is how we are going to talk to a patient who have come to our screening area. So next we will see that another scenario. Meena, she has fever, cough, and she has a little bit difficulty in breathing. Her son has come back from London 4 days back. Now she has come up for the testing this corona. Now we'll see this, how the nurse can talk with this patient in this situation.
मेरा नाम मीना है, मैं कोरोना जांच कराने के लिए आई हूँ।
आप सही जगह पे आई है। टेस्ट करने से पहले आपको एक छोटा सा स्क्रीनिंग फॉर्म भरना होगा, उसके बाद हम देखेंगे आपको टेस्ट की आवश्यकता है या नहीं है।
अरे नहीं नहीं, मुझे तो टेस्ट कराना ही है, आप मेरा टेस्ट कर दीजिए बस।
आप पहले ये फॉर्म तो भर लीजिए, ये लीजिए फॉर्म।
ठीक है, लिख दीजिए। इसमें लिखा है खांसी, हाँ खांसी तो है मुझे, बुखार, हाँ बुखार भी है, गले में दर्द भी है, सांस लेने में खिंचाव, हाँ खिंचाव तो हो ही रहा है। विदेश यात्रा नहीं नहीं, ये तो मैंने नहीं की। किसी बाहर वाले व्यक्ति से नहीं, कोई नजदीकी नहीं। हाँ लेकिन मेरा बेटा तो आया है, 4 दिन पहले लंदन से ही आया है। ये लीजिए मैम, मैंने फॉर्म भर दिया, अब मेरा टेस्ट कर दीजिए। मुझे तो बहुत ही डर लग रहा है, कहीं कोरोना ना हो गया हो मेरे को।
जी आप यहाँ बैठ जाइए, मैं आपको समझाती हूँ कि आपको आगे क्या करना है। देखिए मीना जी, जैसे कि आपने फॉर्म में लिखा हुआ है कि आपको भी खांसी पिछले 3-4 दिनों से है और आपको बुखार भी है, गले में दर्द है, सांस लेने में थोड़ा सा दिक्कत भी है। इसके अलावा आपने लिखा है कि आपका बेटा अभी फिलहाल लंदन से लौटा है। तो मैं ये पूछना चाहूंगी कि आप अपने बेटे से कितने नजदीक तक आए हैं?
जी बेटा तो मेरे साथ ही रहता है, और खाना पीना सब कुछ इतने दिनों बाद आया है मेरा बेटा, और घर में कमरा भी हमारा एक ही है।
अच्छा मीना जी, तो आप सही समय पर हॉस्पिटल आई हुए हैं, आपकी कोरोना की जांच करनी पड़ेगी।
कहीं मुझे कोरोना तो नहीं हो गया है?
मीना जी, मैं आपकी चिंता समझ सकती हूँ। जैसे कि मैंने आपको बताया है कि आपको कोरोना के प्रमुख लक्षण दिख रहे हैं। कोरोना है या नहीं है तो टेस्ट के बाद ही पता पाएगा। क्या आपके बेटे को भी कोई परेशानी है?
नहीं नहीं, बेटे को बस थोड़ी खांसी थी, पर अब बिल्कुल भी नहीं है।
अच्छा, तो आपके घर में और कौन कौन है?
घर में मेरे अलावा मेरे 2 बेटे हैं बस।
आइए मीना जी, आप सैंपल दे दीजिए, फिर आप मेरे पास वापस आ जाइएगा सैंपल देने के बाद। सामने वाले कमरे में चले जाइए सैंपल देने के लिए।
जी जी ठीक है, मैं सैंपल देने जाती हूँ। मैं आ गई सैंपल देकर। सिस्टर जी बताइए क्या करना है अब?
अच्छा मीना जी, आप अभी घर जा सकते हैं, लेकिन आपको कुछ बातों का बहुत ख्याल रखना होगा।
अच्छा।
आपने मास्क लगा के तो रही है, अच्छी बात है। खांसने और सीखते समय आपका मुंह ढकना होना चाहिए, और गीला होने पर मास्क बदल सकते हैं। अगर टिश्यू पेपर इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं तो उसे बंद डस्टबिन में ही डालें। बार बार हाथ धोते रहे और अपने घर में ही रहें, दूसरे लोगों से ना मिले।
जी।
आप अपने खाने के बर्तन, बेड और टॉयलेट भी अलग कर लें। आपको टेस्ट की रिपोर्ट आपको बाद में पता चली जाएगा।
जी ठीक है मैडम, तो फिर कब तक आ जाएगी वैसे मेरी रिपोर्ट?
टेस्ट की रिपोर्ट तो 24 घंटों के अंदर आ जाती है। अगर आपको और ज्यादा परेशानी हो रही है तो आप तुरंत हॉस्पिटल आ सकते हैं, और हेल्पलाइन नंबर पे आप कॉल कर सकते हैं। वो नंबर है 1075।
अच्छा जी।
ठीक है मीना जी,
हाँ
आप अपना और अपने परिवार का ख्याल रखिएगा।
जी ठीक है सिस्टर जी, मैं जाऊँ?
हाँ जी, आप जाइए अभी।
ठीक है जी, धन्यवाद।
Okay, from this conversation we can make out that the lady who has no travel history, but her son has come back from the foreign trip, so that she wanted to get the testing. So what are the information that correctly we are supposed to give? We are given to this Meena. So now we'll see what is the another scenario, that Mary has come back from the London in the last week, but she has no symptom right now, but she wanted to go for the testing. So now we'll see in this scenario.
जी मेरा नाम मैरी है, मैं अपनी कोरोना की जांच कराना चाहती हूँ।
आप सही जगह पे आई है। टेस्ट करने से पहले आपको एक छोटा सा स्क्रीनिंग फॉर्म भरना होगा। उसके बाद हम देखेंगे आपको टेस्ट की आवश्यकता है या नहीं है।
नहीं, मुझे तो टेस्ट कराना ही है, मेरा टेस्ट कर दीजिए जल्दी से बस।
तो आप पहले ये फॉर्म भर दीजिए, ये रहा फॉर्म।
अच्छा जी ठीक है। इसमें लिखा है खांसी, हाँ वो तो है मुझे। बुखार तो नहीं है, गले में दर्द नहीं। विदेश यात्रा, हाँ विदेश यात्रा तो है। किसी बाहर से आए व्यक्ति से नजदीकी मुलाकात नहीं। ये लीजिए, ये मैंने फॉर्म भर दिया है, अब मेरा टेस्ट कर दीजिए बस। मुझे तो बहुत ही डर लग रहा है, कहीं कोरोना ना हो गया मेरे को।
अच्छा मेरी जी, आप यहाँ बैठ जाइए, मैं आपको समझाती हूँ कि आपको आगे क्या करना है।
अच्छा
बैठ जाइए। देखिए मेरी जी, जैसे कि आपने फॉर्म में लिखा है कि आपको खांसी है पिछले 3-4 दिनों से, और आपको इसके अलावा और कोई भी लक्षण नहीं है, पर आप पिछले हफ्ते विदेश यात्रा से आई है। ऐसे में मैं आपको बताना चाहूंगी कि आपको टेस्ट की जरूरत है।
अच्छा, लेकिन कहीं आपको लग रहा है कि मुझे कोरोना तो नहीं हो गया है?
मेरी जी, मैं आपकी चिंता समझ सकती हूँ। जैसे कि मैंने आपको बताया कि आप विदेश यात्रा करके लौटे हैं, इसलिए कोरोना की जांच करनी जरूरी है।
जी।
आपके घर में और कौन कौन है?
घर में मेरे अलावा मेरे 2 बेटे हैं बस।
आइए मेरी जी, मैं आपके सैंपल के लिए आप इस नेक्स्ट वाले रूम पे चले जाइए, सैंपल दे के आइए।
अच्छा जी ठीक है, मैं दे के आती हूँ। सिस्टर जी मैंने अपना सैंपल दे दिया है, अब क्या करना है?
अच्छा मेरी जी, आप अभी घर जा सकते हैं, लेकिन आपको कुछ बातों का बहुत ख्याल रखना होगा। आपने मास्क लगा रखे हैं, ये अच्छी बात है। खांसते और छींकते समय आपका मुंह ढकना होना चाहिए, और मास्क गीला होने पर मास्क बदल सकते हैं। अगर टिश्यू पेपर इस्तेमाल किया है तो उसे बंद डस्टबिन में ही डालें। बार बार हाथ धोते रहे और अपने घर में ही रहें। आप और आपके घर वाले दूसरे लोगों से ना मिलें। आप अपने खाने के बर्तन, बेड और टॉयलेट भी अलग कर लें। आपके टेस्ट की रिपोर्ट तो आ ही जाएगा।
ठीक है मैडम। तो वैसे कब तक आ जाएगी ये रिपोर्ट?
टेस्ट की रिपोर्ट तो 24 घंटों में आ जाती है। अगर आपको ज्यादा परेशानी लगती है तो आप तुरंत हॉस्पिटल आ सकते हैं या हेल्पलाइन नंबर पर कॉल कर सकते हैं। वो नंबर है 1075। इस नंबर पे आप कॉल कर सकते हैं।
अच्छा जी, तो फिर अभी मैं जाऊँ?
हाँ जी मेरी जी, आप अपना और अपने परिवार का ख्याल रखिएगा।
जी धन्यवाद सिस्टर जी।
Scenario, we can see that some of the patients are staying in the isolation for the 14 days and for the long time, and sometimes they feel that they're very irritated, and sometimes they feel why I should wear the mask for the 24 hours or all the time. So now in this situation, let's see that a nurse who will be talking to a patient who is in the isolation, what is the importance of wearing the mask for all the time. Let's hear from this conversation.
रीतू जी, ये आपका रूम है। मैं सिस्टर आशा हूँ। मैं आपको आपके रूम के बारे में और यहाँ रहने के बारे में कुछ जरूरी बातें बताना चाहती हूँ।
कैसी जरूरी बात है सिस्टर?
ऋतु जी, सबसे जरूरी बात है कि आपको मास्क जो हम देंगे हमेशा ही पहनना है। ये कभी भी आपके चेहरे से नीचे नहीं होना चाहिए। आपकी नाक और मुंह को आपको हमेशा ढक कर रखना होगा।
मास्क तो मैं लगा के ही रखती हूँ, पर जब अकेले ही रूम में होती हूँ तो हटा सकती हूँ ना सिस्टर?
ऋतु जी, मैं यही आपको समझा रही हूँ। मास्क हमेशा पहनना है, चाहे आप अकेले ही क्यों ना हो।
ये तो बहुत ही मुश्किल का काम है। आप ही बताओ भला, अकेले में मास्क लगाने का क्या फायदा? जब मेरे पास कोई हो तब तो उसको कोविड होने का डर है मुझसे, मगर जब कोई है ही नहीं आसपास तो मास्क किसके लिए लगाना?
ऋतु जी, मैं आपको बताना चाहती हूँ कि कोविड-19 के विषाणु आपके खांसने, छींकने और थूकने से पर्यावरण में फैलता है। ये विषाणु हवा में, फर्श में, बिस्तर में और आपके आसपास की जगह से कई घंटों से कई दिनों तक रह सकता है। अगर कोई और व्यक्ति आपके आसपास की इन चीजों को हाथ लगाता है तो इस तरह से विषाणु उस आदमी को भी मिल जाता है। इसलिए आपको अकेले में भी मास्क को ही लगा के रखना होगा, ताकि जो लोग आपके रूम में आते जाते हैं जैसे डॉक्टर, नर्स, सफाई कर्मचारी, उन्हें ये विषाणु ना मिले।
अच्छा ऐसा है, तो मैं पूरे समय मास्क लगा के रखूंगी।
ऋतु जी, मैं समझ सकती हूँ कि आप इस समय बहुत मानसिक परेशानी से जूझ रही हैं, लेकिन मैं आपको ये बताना भी चाहती हूँ कि इस समस्या का बस यही समाधान है। हम जितना दूसरों से दूर रहेंगे उतना ही कोरोना से भी दूर रह पाएंगे। हम मिलकर ही इस बीमारी को हटा सकते हैं।
Okay, from this conversation, we clearly can understand that why the nurse is making the patient to understand what is the importance of wearing the mask all the time and how it can be prevented the spread of this coronavirus from one to another. So this is how we have to give the very clear information to the patient. And another scenario is like one patient who is going to discharge from the quarantine place, and before he get discharged, how a nurse can give a health education to him. What is he supposed to do after going back home? Now let's listen from this audio.
यार, अस्पताल में आए हुए आज पूरे 3 दिन हो गए हैं। मैं तो बहुत बोर हो गया हूँ।
बोर तो मैं भी हो गया हूँ, लेकिन क्या करे, घर जाना भी तो मना है।
घर वाले भी बहुत डरे
Quarantine
हैं।
patient wants to
वैसे तो हमें
go
कोई
from
दिक्कत है
hospital.
नहीं, पर यहाँ अस्पताल में रहकर ही कोई बीमारी ना पकड़ ले हमें।
हाँ यार, लक्षण जैसे टीवी पर बताते रहते हैं ऐसा तो कुछ भी नहीं है। हमें फालतू में पकड़ रखा है। सारी दुनिया घर पर मजे कर रहे हैं और हम यहाँ जेल में।
चल यार, भाग चलते हैं यहाँ से।
ये आप दोनों कैसे बातें कर रहे हैं? यहाँ से बाहर जाना आपके लिए नहीं बल्कि दूसरों के लिए भी बहुत खतरनाक हो सकते हैं।
कैसा खतरा? हम तो बिल्कुल ठीक है, कुछ भी तो नहीं है हमें।
आपकी कोरोना रिपोर्ट पॉजिटिव आई है ना, पर आपके अंदर कोई लक्षण नहीं दिख रहे हैं। इसका मतलब ये बिल्कुल भी नहीं है कि आपको कोरोना नहीं है। आपके शरीर की इम्यूनिटी अच्छी है, इसलिए आपको अभी ज्यादा परेशानी नहीं दिख रही। पर ऐसा हमेशा नहीं हो सकता। कोरोना विषाणु अगर ताकतवर होगा तो आपको काफी तकलीफों का सामना करना पड़ सकता है।
वो सब तो ठीक है, पर हम तो और उससे मिलजुल भी तो नहीं सकते। ये कैसे चलेगा? न जाने कितने दिन आप लोग हमें यहाँ कैद रखेंगे।
कोरोना विषाणु हर व्यक्ति पर अलग अलग असर दिखाता है। आप लोगों को औरों से ना मिलने देने का कारण यही है कि जो लोग भी आपके संपर्क में आएंगे उन्हें कोरोना होने का खतरा बन जाएगा। आपको तो पता ही होगा कि कुछ खास वर्ग के लोगों जैसे छोटे बच्चे और बुजुर्ग इन बीमारियों में ज्यादा खतरे में हैं। साथ ही साथ वो लोगों भी जो अन्य किसी लंबी बीमारी से परेशान हैं, उनके लिए भी ये कोरोना बहुत खतरनाक साबित हो रहा है। हम सभी यहाँ पूरी कोशिश कर रहे हैं कि हम इस बीमारी को फैलने से कैसे रोकें। आप लोगों की मदद के बिना हम ये कभी हासिल नहीं कर पाएगा।
आपका कहना है कि इस बीमारी का हर व्यक्ति पर अलग असर हो रहा है। मेरे घर में मेरे दादाजी हैं जिन्हें अस्थमा है, पापा को हाई बीपी रहता है, तो मेरे वहाँ रहने से क्या उनके लिए खतरा है?
बिल्कुल सही, आप सही कह रहे हैं। आप तो उनसे दूर रहना ही उनकी जान बचा सकता है। बाद में दुखी होने की वजह हम आज ही सही कदम उठाना होगा। एक और बात मैं बताना चाहती हूँ कि अगर कोई बिना इलाज किए अस्पताल से भागना चाहते हैं या भागने की कोशिश करते हैं तो उसे IPC 270, 271 और इन्फेक्शियस डिजीज एक्ट 188 के तहत 2000 रुपए का जुर्माना और 6 महीने की जेल भी हो सकती है।
नहीं, ऐसा हम कुछ नहीं करेंगे। हम यहीं रहेंगे। आपके साथ साथ और अपने साथ साथ औरों की भी जान बचाएंगे।
आपको बता दें, सही समय पर अस्पताल में आकर जांच करवाकर पूरा इलाज कर आप असली हीरो बन रहे हैं। पूरा इलाज लीजिए।
आपने तो हमारी आंखें खोल दी।
अब हम पूरा इलाज करवा कर ही यहाँ से जाएंगे।
हाँ।
Okay, from this conversation that we could make out that how the patient would like to get out of the hospital because they feel that quarantine is a very long day for them, and if they are not having any symptom, why they should stay back here. So from this conversation, you could hear that how a nurse has very clearly asked to them and educate them what is the importance of staying in the quarantine and what all things that it is be beneficial. So now one patient who is going to discharge from this quarantine, and during this quarantine they may be happy and they may have the mixed emotions that they are going to relieve from this quarantine, but on top of that they may have the fear and worry because of their health and others' health, and sometimes they also may show about the stressful because of monitoring of himself about the signs and symptoms of the COVID since long time, and sometimes they may feel that sadness, anger and frustration. If they go back home, whether they will be again contracting the other diseases with the other people or not. So sometimes they may feel the guilt also that they are not able to perform the normal work or the parenting duties during this quarantine. So here it is very important for that person to understand, make them understand it. Now we'll see that the patient named Ravi, he is going to discharge from this hospital, and before he go back to home, a nurse is educating him what all he has to do. Now we listen from
Sir,
this
Ravi,
audio.
आज आपको हॉस्पिटल से छुट्टी हो रही है, आपको कैसा लग रहा है?
मैं बहुत खुश हूँ सिस्टर जी कि मैं सही सलामत अपने घर जा पा रहा हूँ। भगवान का आभारी हूँ और आप लोगों का भी। आप लोग बहुत मेहनत कर रहे हैं।
रवि जी, हम सब भी आपके अच्छे होने से ना बहुत खुश हैं। आपको डिस्चार्ज समरी देते हुए मैं आपको कुछ जरूरी बातें बताना चाहती हूँ।
हाँ जी सिस्टर जी, बताइए।
रवि जी, आप अपने घर जाकर भी अपने घर वालों से और दूसरे लोगों से दूरी बना के रखना। अगले 14 दिन तक आपको अपने घर में अलग कमरे में रहना होगा। अपना बिस्तर, कपड़े, खाने के बर्तन अलग रखना होगा। पड़ोसियों से नहीं मिलना है। अपने कमरे में ही रहना होगा। हो सके तो टॉयलेट भी अलग करना होगा।
अभी भी मुझे सबसे अलग रहना होगा सिस्टर जी, पर 2 टॉयलेट तो नहीं है हमारे पास।
ऐसा है तो आप जब भी टॉयलेट इस्तेमाल कर लेते हो तो आप ब्लीच का 1% से सफाई करना ना भूलिएगा।
अच्छा सिस्टर जी, मैं इन सब बातों का पूरा ख्याल रखूंगा।
अच्छा ठीक है रवि जी, आप अब घर जा सकते हैं। अपना ख्याल रखिएगा।
थैंक यू सिस्टर जी।
Okay, from this scenario, we can make out that how a nurse is educating a patient what he is supposed to do after going home. So now these are the scenarios that we may come up along with our adult people. But we are not only facing the problem with the adult. There are patients who are children who have tested positive with the COVID-19. So they may show some signs and symptoms of excessive crying, excessive worry, unhealthy eating, and the sleeping habit. Some of the acting out behavior they may show during this time, and they may have the difficulty in attention and concentration, and we have to find out what are the questions that they are asking to us. We need to answer them so that they can understand, and we need to reassure them, and they may sometimes they may misinterpret what they hear. So we need to give that exact information, whatever they have understood, that information we are supposed to give it to them. Okay, now we're going to start with a scenario in which one child, his name is Rohit, and he is 12 years old, and he is positive, COVID-19 positive, and how a nursing officer can teach him to understand why he needs to stay back in the hospital. Now let's listen for this from this audio.
हेलो रोहित, मेरा नाम सिस्टर पूजा है।
सिस्टर मुझे यहाँ बहुत डर लग रहा है, मुझे घर जाना है, मेरी मम्मी पापा को बुला दीजिए प्लीज।
रोहित बेटा, आप कौन सी क्लास में हो?
मैं भी 7 पे हूँ, प्लीज आप मेरे पेरेंट्स को बुला दीजिए।
अच्छा रोहित, आप 7 क्लास में हो। आपको पता है कि आप यहाँ क्यों हैं?
हाँ सिस्टर, मेरे को कोरोना टेस्ट हुआ था और पॉजिटिव आया है। मुझे यहाँ बहुत लग रहा है, मुझे घर जाना है।
अच्छा रोहित, आपको तो पता है ना आपका टेस्ट पॉजिटिव आया है। आपको अभी कुछ दिनों के लिए यही हॉस्पिटल में रहना होगा। मैं यहाँ आपका पूरा ख्याल रखूंगी। अगर आपको कुछ भी परेशानी है तो आप मुझे बता सकते हैं।
मुझे यहाँ बहुत डर लग रहा है सिस्टर, क्या मैं मर जाऊंगा?
रोहित, ये वायरस बच्चों को ज्यादा परेशान नहीं कर पाता क्योंकि आपकी बॉडी में स्ट्रॉन्ग होते हैं।
तो मुझे यहाँ क्यों रखा है? मुझे घर जाना है।
रोहित बेटा, चलो मैं आपको इन वायरस के बारे में कुछ और बात बताती हूँ।
मुझे सब पता है सिस्टर, ये वायरस खांसने, छींकने और थूकने से फैलता है। मैं सब जानता हूँ, पर मैं बिल्कुल ठीक हूँ। और आप भी तो कह रही हो ना बच्चों को वायरस ज्यादा तंग नहीं करता सिस्टर।
हाँ रोहित, आप बिल्कुल सही समझे हैं। बच्चों को ये ज्यादा परेशान नहीं कर पाता। लेकिन रोहित, ये वायरस दूसरों को कुछ लोगों के लिए भी बहुत जानलेवा भी है। आप बताओ आपके घर में और कौन कौन है, फिर मैं आपको आगे की बात बताऊंगी।
मेरे घर में मेरी मम्मी है, पापा है, मेरी छोटी सी बहन है, वो अभी 4 महीने की है। मुझे उसकी बहुत याद आ रही है। मैं उसके साथ खेलना चाहता हूँ। दादा और दादी जी भी हमारे साथ रहते हैं। मेरे दादू के ही साथ सोता हूँ।
अच्छा रोहित, आपको कोरोना वायरस के बारे में कुछ और भी बातें जानी होगी।
और क्या जानना है सिस्टर?
रोहित, ये कोरोना वायरस कुछ खास उम्र के लोगों के लिए बहुत खतरनाक साबित हो रही है, जैसे कि 6 महीने के छोटे बच्चे और 7 साल के ऊपर के बुजुर्ग लोगों के लिए ये बहुत घातक है। आपको तो पता है ना, आपकी छोटी बहन और दादा दादी से बहुत प्यार करते हैं ना आप तो नहीं चाहेंगे कि ना आपकी वजह से उनकी तबीयत खराब हो।
नहीं, मैं उन्हें बहुत प्यार करता हूँ सिस्टर, उन्हें कुछ नहीं होगा ना?
हाँ रोहित, आप बहुत समझदार बच्चे हैं और आप मेरी सारी बात समझ भी रहे हैं। अगर आप उनसे दूर रहेंगे तो आपसे कोई खतरा नहीं होगा।
तो मुझे सिस्टर कब तक यहाँ रहना होगा?
बस आपको कुछ दिनों के लिए रहना पड़ेगा और जैसे ही आपके 2 कोरोना टेस्ट नेगेटिव आ जाएंगे, आपको यहाँ से छुट्टी हो जाएगी।
पता नहीं मुझे कब तक आप लोग यहाँ पे रखोगे। मैं कभी भी अकेली नहीं रहा हूँ, मुझे उन्हें देखना है।
बेटा, मैं समझ सकती हूँ आपको मम्मी पापा की, अपने सारे घर वालों की बहुत याद आएगी, पर आप उनसे बात तो हमेशा कर सकते हो ना?
तो बात कर सकता हूँ सच में सिस्टर?
हाँ, आपके पास जो टैबलेट है इस पे आप कभी भी अपने घर वालों से वीडियो चैट या बात कर सकते हैं।
अच्छा, मुझे अभी भी बात करनी है अपनी मम्मी से?
हाँ जरूर, ऐसा करो, आप बात करो, मैं आपसे फिर बात करूंगी। ओके,
ठीक है सिस्टर, थैंक यू।
Okay, from this scenario and through this conversation, we can make out that how a nursing officer is trying to console the child, even though he acts like he knows everything, but he is trying to console that or staff nurses trying to console the child that he has to stay back in the isolation ward so that the disease cannot be spread to the other people.
Hello.
So now just to conclude that COVID pandemic is very stressful and traumatic as it required isolation for a very long time, and they create the panic due to the uncertainty and can take an emotional toll for many of us. So there is no standard playbook on communicating with the public during the pandemic. So the communicators, we will be very enlisting the public's help in reducing the illness and the death. So we hope that from this webinar, we have come up with some of the scenarios that how the nursing officer or being a nurse, we need to talk with the people in a different setting and how clearly and effectively we can communicate with them and giving the information to them that what to be done and what not to be done. So take home message is communicating effectively with the COVID patients will reduce the stress, anxiety of the patient. Only the communication will bring the trust and good relationship with the patient. Many of the problems are solved if we communicate very effectively. So together we can defeat coronavirus. Thank you so much for joining with us. Thank you all. These are my references.